Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Player's Edge. I think we lost Sean in a barrel full of noise right there before we came live. I was wondering what that is. Tonight, you see as the fourth face on the show. Todd Schrupp from TVG is in the house. How are you tonight, Todd?
The fact that I'm with you guys, I'm obviously doing very well, although I hope you don't mind the staycation beard. I've taken some time off after Del Mar, and I grew this out. This will be shaved by the time we get to Saturday and the big win in your races at Santa Anita.
Nice. That's fine by me. I was going to go with a little bit of Pearl Jam to go with, along with the question and answer that you can find on the horseracingradar.com. But you know how these multi-million-dollar musicians are. A 15-second clip would be way too much for us to pay for.
Well, I appreciate it. And look, I've never done this before. So on the question and answer, and they were fantastic questions when we got to the music part, which obviously means a lot to me. And, you asked about my dad, who is in the Marine Corps. When he got out of the Marine Corps, he got into the music business. And that's why music has always been a big thing with me. We always had the promotional albums he brought home. He kept them in orange crates in alphabetical order. And by the time albums were on their way out, he had about 3,000 albums at the time. Of course, now vinyl's come back. But that's why I've always loved music. So one of your questions was, who's a band that you'd really like to see? Well, Dave Weaver has followed Pearl Jam all around the country. And I don't know how many years they have left of playing, but I said, Dave, I've never seen him. He's like, you got to see him. So I did something I would normally never do. And I wasn't even going to admit it on this broadcast, but I'll admit it anyway. Opening day at Santa Anita is tomorrow. I can ride my bike to Santa Anita. I live that close. Wow. I love Santa Anita. I asked for tomorrow off so I can go to the Pearl Jam concert at Duhaney State Park here in Southern California with Dave Weaver. So me and Ice Cold Exacta will be singing Jeremy and many of the other great songs from Pearl Jam opening day at Santa Anita. But I also looked ahead and realized Saturday is going to be a phenomenal day. So I'll be back in on the action on Saturday. Yes,
maybe you'll surprise us with a hard left with some of the ability to sing.
I like it.
For sure. And tonight on the show, as usual, we have, I don't know. Well, what do you say? You done better. I don't know. I can't read Tom's stuff sometime, but Tom was up in the air and here he's here tonight. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing okay. I had a nice day and weather's been decent around here, so can't complain. Todd, what is the worst bet you ever made that you knew you shouldn't have made?
Oh gosh. I think it was probably one I made last week. That's the thing. Someone said this to me early on, that you can bet, from a handicapping point of view, you can handicap sports betting with emotion. In other words, you can look at a college football game and emotion plays into it. But just as a bettor in horse racing, you've got to fight emotion. And even to this day, even though I know better, when I'm on a complete slide and maybe I'm on tilt because of a bad call, because of a bad ride, or maybe it's a bad pick, and I think we have to admit that more often than horse players, I've really got to fight being emotional about playing. Sometimes you need to step back. And I'll be honest with you, for some reason and I'll tell you what it was. And I haven't recovered. I'll just be honest with you. So it was opening day at Saratoga. I think every horse player has a theme to their year. There's something that keeps happening year after year. I think for example, in some years it might be you use 4 out of 7, and every time it's a 7-horse field, you use 4, one of the other 3 wins, and that's just kind of the theme. You should be hitting something along those lines. My theme this year has been canceling great tickets. And so
that's never fun.
Opening day of Saratoga, I had gotten a tip on a first-time starter, and it turned out to be Goodnight, who went and ultimately ended up to be one of the best. Oh, no, it was Echo Zulu. It was Echo Zulu, who ended up being one of the best 2-year-old fillies in the meet. Well, it was her first start. Somebody told me that she could run. She was 4-1 for Asmussen. So I had a $525 pick 6 ticket. I singled her to start. There was kind of a free square about 4 races in. So it was a pick 6 that had 2 singles, one who was ultimately 4-1, one who was about 3-5. And so I put the ticket in online, obviously, and I played the early pick 5. And I'm sitting 3 for 3 in the early pick 5. In leg 4, I get knocked out. And so now I'm thinking, okay, I want to play the late pick 5, and I've only earmarked this much for Saratoga. Why don't I cancel the pick 6 ticket and shave down the last race? So the last race in the pick 6, I was 5 deep. I'm like, I can go from 525 and I can make it 315 and go 3 deep. And then I can use the other $200 and play the pick 5 late. Well, we know how the story goes. So Echo Zulu wins at 4-1, hit like a 15-1, great prices all the way. I get to the last race, I'm 5 for 5. So I have 3 of the 5 horses I originally had, and they're paying $15,000, $30,000, and then one of them's Yahtzee for like $60,000. So of course, one of the 2 horses that I shaved off the original ticket ends up winning, and it pays $80,000. And at that moment, on opening day at Saratoga, I was on tilt for the rest of the summer. And I would like to tell you that I've overcome it since then. We're sitting here in late September, but there's, even if I don't talk about it, and this is the first time I've talked about it in a while, I just think subconsciously you've got to know what's going on with yourself as a horse player. So I'll be honest with you, I've made a lot of bad bets over the last few months. It was all because of that opening day. You really have to deal with the setbacks in a rational manner, and I'm fortunate more than most. I've got a day job. I know professional horse players, and they have the ultimate respect from me because that's their living, and so they've got to fight those urges. And it's been tough for me. So yeah, to answer the long answer to your question, my worst bet of the summer was canceling that eventual winning pick 6 for 82,000. And then my most recent bad bet was probably my last bet because I've just been making a lot of them since then.
That happens. Well, Terry Hollywood Hayden and I we kind of been running that same train where we're just missing a bet here or there in our pick 4 tickets. And when we look back, we're just giving ourselves how did we miss that? This is Terry Hollywood. Hey, he's your neighbor. Maybe, Terry, you can catch up with him down at the Pearl Jam concert tomorrow.
Oh, maybe if I ran down 8 hours down there. I'm up in Northern California. I'm by Golden Gate Fields. So
love Gold. And I'm ashamed to say that it wasn't up until it was actually during, I'd say probably about 3 winters ago that I first went to Golden Gate for the first time. I had been to Bay Meadows, but then they had a cancellation of a lot of racing during the rainy winter down here at Santa Anita. We went to Golden Gate, and I love Golden Gate. I just think Northern California has one of the great traditions in all of the sport. And I go back to Ron Hansen and those days. And I mean, look at Southern California. We're basically populated now, with Northern California horsemen who've come down here and been successful. But look at the riding colony. We basically took your 3 best riders from Northern California. We brought them down here. But I love Northern California racing. I love Golden Gate for sure.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. I did have a quick question. I know I watch you all the time on TVG, and I see you banter back and forth. And I think it's mostly with Simon Bray, if I'm correct. But I wanted to know, who do you like to banter back and forth with the most?
Look, Simon is, for lack of a better term, my work wife. He can finish my sentences and I can finish his. And so when he got sick about 3 years ago, it was really hard for me because he was out for the entire year. Having said that, as easy as it is working with Simon, I love Dave Weaver. Dave Weaver is one of my best friends through life. I mean, there's the relationships we have on screen, and as a host, it's never about the host. I know some people are like, oh, he's got this personality and he makes it about him. And it's like, if you watch closely, my view of the role of the host is you're not supposed to be the expert. You're supposed to set up the person that's sitting next to you. Do I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask? Of course I do. But it's not my job to be the expert. I'm supposed to turn it over to the analyst. So I feel like I've had a really good show when I set that person up. But there's something about Dave Weaver that I just really have a connection with him on and off camera. And we gamble a lot together too. Dave and I have had some great gambling excursions. I always said about Dave Weaver, if you had $10 and you need to turn it into 10,000, he's your man. If you had $10,000 and you need to turn it into confetti, he's your guy. Like Dave Weaver rides the ups and downs of all of them. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you watch me on the show, I hope that you don't know who necessarily my best friend is. I hope you see that I'm trying to make the person who's with me my best friend on the show that day and setting them up to be the best that they possibly can be. Obviously, I have a great relationship with Simon Bray, and he's, my number one guy or person on air. But if I'm sitting with Christina Blacker, I think if you watch the show, you would see chemistry there and two people who are doing a good show. If I'm on with Rich Perloff, who I don't get to work with very often, I think you'd see a show where you'd be like, wow, those guys are really close. And that's the thing. We're all close-knit as a group, but I would say that Dave Weaver makes me laugh like no one in my life, like real belly laughs. And that would be my answer, Dave Weaver. But obviously, Simon and I have a chemistry that I'm glad that really comes across and people connect with.
Well, you've been very successful making it look like you really, help the other person
Thank you.
Get along with them. Yeah. So you're very popular with the public. So
you're very kind. Thank you.
Yeah, Sean is our number one guy, and he's also the 10 to 10,000 to confetti guy on the show.
All right, then we're playing tickets together.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But I had a question, but I'm going to go back to the other. Sorry to bring up this pick six again, but I've heard this with horse players before. And you didn't in that case, I would imagine. Do you ever hedge your bet? Like, what you ever thought about playing those two horses that you didn't have covered?
To me, it's like insurance in blackjack. Either you buy it all the time or you don't buy it all the time. And so when I came into the game, I just was convinced that over the long haul, don't hedge. Have I gotten into a few situations since I made that promise to myself where I still did it anyway? It was usually because my bankroll was getting towards empty, and I'm like, okay, I can guarantee myself a profit here. But my advice to anyone, and especially here's the other thing, look at it this way. Let's say I did hedge, and the horse that won that day, I think ultimately went off at 11-1. So I put 200 to win, and I get 2,200 back. I'm not getting $82,000. So it's like, if I'm alive for something and I've locked up a bunch of horses, that's one thing. In that particular situation, I wouldn't. It's a great question. And I know some people think just hedge because you can guarantee yourself a profit. But at that point, I was like, let me just hope that I shave back this ticket in the right way. But I'm not a believer in hedging. And I just think everything you do in gambling, you have to be consistent about. You're going to go through dry spells where it doesn't work, but it is kind of akin to the person who sits at the blackjack table. One time they're hitting into the dealer's six, the other time they're staying. It's like, no, you either do it the same way every time or you shouldn't be at the table. So I think it's the same thing with horse players. I'm not about hedging, and I'm not saying it's wrong that anyone does hedge, but at least be consistent about it, one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Then my other question is, I've gotten to know a lot of jockeys, trainers, and stuff, setting up guests and stuff. And you obviously have. Can you throw somebody out there that's like one of the nicest guys or most interesting guys you've met that's not obvious? Like,
well, that's the thing, is that when you look at horse racing and the trainers that we get to talk about, I think there's just a list of trainers out there that, if given the shot, would absolutely be fantastic and have as much success. And I think that applies to a lot of sports as well. You just need to have that opportunity. For the longest time when I was in South Florida, and I still maintain this, when people talk about, oh, what's the best jockey you saw, they expect you to answer a name that everybody knows. Abar Koa was one of the best jockeys I saw in my time in horse racing, but most of the public doesn't know Abar Koa. And then unfortunately an injury brought that to an end. And that's what I love about the game. When you follow your circuit, there are guys where you're like, that guy's as dependable as anybody anywhere in the country, but they're never going to be someone who rides consistent grade one winners. So I think every circuit has that type of horseman or horsewoman. And something we had talked about or on the Q&A, when I was at Canterbury Downs in Minnesota, I was just starting out in horse racing. And then it turned out it was a launching point for so many great riders. Mike Smith coming up from New Mexico. He was a 20-something nobody knew about. Donna Barton Brothers was an apprentice who rode one of the best horses we had there in Hoister Flag. And then obviously she went on to a great broadcasting career. And I look at the horses that came through there. I look at horses that will never be recognized as the greats within the division. But I think at the time and what they did, they were great to me. Like Dr. Who was one of the best sprinters in the Midwest I ever saw, but he never went out to California. He never went out to the East Coast. He just stayed in Nebraska and Minnesota and maybe down to Arkansas a couple of times. I would say that there are names on every circuit that don't get enough publicity and that I'm ultimately impressed with, and it's a pleasure to cover them. And I mentioned this in the Q&A as well. When I worked at Canterbury, I worked at the customer service center, so I wore a red jacket, and people would come up and go, "Where do I buy a hot dog?" And I tell them where to go. Where was the bathroom? And tell them that. What about the phone? Well, back then they had pay phones and they turned them off once the races started. So you had to send them security. But Steve Asmussen would hang out there. Nobody knew who Steve Asmussen was. And then now he's turned out to be this Hall of Fame trainer. I guess my overall point is, in the sport of horse racing, every circuit to this day has someone who's on the ascendancy or someone who was fine being the big fish in the small pond. I worked with him. He now obviously works on other broadcasts right now. But I've always thought Tom Amoss is as good of a horseman out there as anybody. And for the longest time, Tom Amoss described himself as a ham and egger stable. And he was going to just make his living through the claim box, point towards the fairgrounds. And then he ended up winning the Kentucky Oaks. And now Tom Amoss goes and buys out a book one at Keeneland September. And there's a different pressure there with the 2-year-olds. But Tom Amoss was always a name that, if I said it, people would be like, well, that's because you work for him. I'm like, no, but I got to see him up close. And I just think there's a lot of great horsemen and horsewomen on each circuit that you could say, all right, I would have no problem turning a horse over to them. And they don't have to have a big name or a big resume.
Yeah, and it reminds me, Russell Bays, he went down to Southern California and rode for a little bit. And then he came back to Northern California, and they interviewed him once and asked him, well, why did you do that? And he said, I would rather be a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big pond. So,
and I think that it's, to me, the racetrack is always a microcosm of life. And it really, there's so many lessons to be gained from it. And what I loved about, because the first big event that TVG got to cover was Bill Shoemaker's all-time wins record being caught by Lafitte Pincay. And it was at the old Hollywood Park. And we were camped out there that entire week waiting for Pincay to pass Shoemaker. And I'll never forget, because I interviewed Bill Shoemaker when I was at Canterbury when he was on his farewell tour. Now here was Bill Shoemaker, obviously in a wheelchair. And he was there every day, despite the difficulty, to support his friend, Lafitte Pincay. Lafitte Pincay breaks the record. Now we turn our attention to Russell Bays. And almost everybody was talking about, well, the record's not the same with Russell Bays because he came down to Southern California, as you pointed out, and he had to go back to Northern California. The wins aren't the same. And Lafitte Pincay came out immediately and said, I don't care where you win a race. It's tough to win a horse race. And Lafitte Pincay in his career was not doing well at one point before Bill Sparr turned around and thought about going up to Longacres at the time up in the Pacific Northwest and resisted it. So I think a lot of people, pointed that out and said Russell Bays essentially went to Longacres. He went back north. But when Lafitte Pincay went out and did that, to me, it was showing a class that I hope always exists in this sport. There was Shoemaker supporting Pincay. There was Pincay supporting Bays. And I love the symmetry about our sport. And I love the classiness of it. And I'm glad you brought that up. To each their own. And the bottom line is, we know it as horse players, it's hard to win at the game. So the same applies to riding winners. I don't care where you win a race, it's tough. It's tough. And so I was glad Lafitte Pincay set that aside early when Russell Bays had that march to the record.
You mentioned winning a race is tough, but one of the things you mentioned in the Q&A is that understanding the condition book was something that's you find to be very useful in your handicapping. I would say probably 99% of handicappers go to the track, have no idea what you're talking about in terms of understanding the condition book. Can you kind of explain that a little bit so that folks might be able to start implementing that in their handicapping as well?
It's gotten a lot harder. There's more conditions now and crazy conditions. For those who have been around the game for a while, we couldn't imagine a condition where horses that haven't finished first, second, or third, or an exception is because they're a California bred or wherever you are in the country, the conditions have gotten more difficult. And I think it's led people astray from one of the great truisms in the sport. And, to me, yeah, the idea that pace makes the race is one thing, but anybody can look down and try and make their judgment on pace. To me, class is one of the great truisms that hasn't changed over the years. Do we live in a different world where there are trainers that pull off some miracles and they claim horses for 10 and then bring it back for 40? Or there are trainers who are claiming horses for 40 and dropping them right back down to 20. That's not how I grew up, but you have to adapt. But I look at, for example, just a basic condition without getting too in the weeds for a lot of people. Allowance Company never won 2 Lifetime. To me, when you look at that race, they've all got 1 win. And it's essentially looking at that 1 win, how long it was ago, what type of company it was against, where it was, and you can already start to eliminate the field. When I first got into handicapping the races, I had a friend who had the key in the daily racing form, and we talked on the phone, an actual phone in the wall, and we went through the key and I learned how to read the racing form. After that, okay, well, how do I apply being able to read the racing form? What are the different handicapping angles? So there were 2 authors, Steve Davidowitz, who was in the press box at Canterbury Downs where I first started working, because he wrote for the Minneapolis Star Tribune, and he did something we don't see anymore. You get the $1,000 bankroll at the beginning of the meet and you see what you can do with it. And Steve was down to $200 into the final week of the Canterbury meet, and then he ran it up to 2,000. It was basically, if this horse wins, then take everything that you had to win on it, bet it to show. If that show bet comes in, then you bet this horse. It was just a masterclass. But I got to know Steve Davidowitz after reading his books, and his cornerstone book, Betting Thoroughbreds, still stands up to this day because it takes a lot of those bedrock principles. And then the other one was Andy Beyer. And with Andy Beyer, I made my own speed figures. So before the Racing Times existed, which a lot of people don't even know about to this day, but the Racing Times was the first publication to put Beyer speed figures in it. And when they did, I started to realize there's a real shortcoming to those figures because they hadn't adjusted the turf figures and how it related to the dirt. And so you get turf races where the horse had a 0 rating, and it just, but I realized the shortcomings in how speed figures are only one part of it. So to me, you have to have some bedrock principles that stay with you, that stand the test of time. And one of the truisms is class on the grass, class as it relates to the conditions of a race. And so I think for most of the audience, if you want to see a great demonstration of how class can make a difference, the next time you see a true never won 2 Lifetime race, no exceptions, just all one-time winners, Allowance Company never won 2 Lifetime, go through, handicap where they broke their maidens. If one broke theirs in maiden 40, another broke theirs in maiden special weight has the advantage. If one broke their bottom of the maiden 20, the maiden 40 has the advantage. Start to eliminate that way. And you invariably see that the winner will come from that group of horses that you've handicapped in that never won 2 Lifetime, that have the class in there. So reading the conditions and understanding why a horse is eligible, why a horse is not eligible is very important. One other example I would point out would be an optional claimer. If you have an optional claimer for 40,000 or whatever the price might be, a horse that already got by that condition so often gets to run again if they're offered up for the claiming price. And invariably that horse will come back and win again. So I believe very much in class and reading the conditions.
Sounds good. Looks like we lost Terry now. There he is. Terry's back. Hey, Terry, how are you? You must have pressed the wrong button. All right, so let's get into a little bit of handicapping. You guys ready to take a look at some of the races at Santa Anita this Saturday?
For sure.
All right, fantastic. So I think the first race we're going to do is I got to scroll myself here, is the Rodeo Drive Stakes. That's where Todd probably does all his shopping.
No, I'm on Rodeo Drive.
Me too. Maybe that is Rodeo Drive. I don't know. I'm just guessing. This is 1.25 miles down the turf. It's that downhill course. Now, did they stop these downhill races for a little bit and bring them back? Is that right?
They did. It was that period where unfortunately we had a lot of breakdowns at Santa Anita, and it was kind of an easy target, to be honest with you. Look, I'm not going to question everything that the management team did. They navigated us through a very difficult time in Southern California. And I think you look at the end result now, the fact that they brought back the downhill races. So opening day on Friday, they're going to have the Eddie D, which is a true down the hill race, about 6.5 furlongs. Those races to me always separated Santa Anita from other racetracks. I'm so glad they're back. And so at the 1.25 miles, as you astutely point out, they do kind of start on the down the hill portion of the course, but the true down the hill races about 6.5 are going to be back at this meet.
Oh, that'd be fun. So is it still like the old Los Angeles Raiders or the Oakland Raiders, where they went like in the outfield just out of nowhere? There was just a big patch of dirt.
Yeah, they had the crossover there. That's right.
Yeah, you remember the Raiders used to play on a field like that. I remember teams would wait for the quarter to end to kick a field goal.
Yeah, with these $1 billion stadiums, they don't have to deal with that anymore. I miss the charm of that running over the pitcher's mound.
Absolutely. So race 9, 1.25 downhill. Any kind of from your experience at the track there, Todd, any kind of bias? Does the inside have an advantage, the outside with that kind of weird quick turn?
No, I think more at Del Mar with those 1 1/8 races, it's very sharp because they go out of the chute. Here they have some time to work themselves out. So I don't really see any type of particular advantage getting to the lead, coming from way out of it, especially at 1.25 miles. I don't think that's going to play a factor in this race. I would say, as you look at this race, and we'll be talking about the John Henry later on in race number 11, there are horses, just like other circuits, like in New York, where the Saratoga form stays at Saratoga. The Del Mar form, in some cases, stays at Del Mar. The one thing about this group and the Rodeo Drive, I know everyone likes to say, oh, our group in this division is not particularly strong in the circuit. But when it comes to distaff turf in California, they take turns beating each other. And I look at a horse like Neige Blanche. She was a horse that was not even that great on the East Coast. In fact, she got beat by one of the horses that she's facing in here, Magic Attitude, before she came. They faced each other in the Belmont Oaks Invitational. Magic Attitude now comes out to California, but look at how Neige Blanche has done pretty well since coming to California. It just speaks to the bottom line is there's a lot of depth in the turf racing on the East Coast, and particularly in the distaff turf division. The California group is not great. I think the fact that Luck came in from South America and dominated her first start, just being a new face is a huge advantage out here. So to me, this race was a scramble going into it for sure.
So who do you like?
Going to Vegas is a horse that I didn't think I'd say that, but she's so good right now. And going to Vegas, not only her efforts down at Del Mar, but she was good when they left and were at Santa Anita. She had a great effort in the Santa Ana, and then she got sent to the sidelines for just a couple of months. But she can handle both turf courses, and her last 2 races have been so good that she's been very tractable. I think Magic Attitude, obviously coming in from the East Coast, I kind of preluded there. If John Velasquez rode out here in Southern California, seems like he'd be 57%. The fact that he's out here and with a horse like Magic Attitude, and I think a lot of trainer Arnaud Delacour, especially this horse off of Freshing, hasn't raced since July 17th in the Grade 1 Diana. The fact is, those are just better horses that Magic Attitude has been facing. Doesn't matter how much she's been beaten by. She's just facing a weaker group. The only question to me is luck. I mean, she was brilliant in her first start here in the United States, but she was just a so-so horse in South America. I don't know if she regresses, if she moves forward. If she moves forward off that race, then she's great. I mean, luck is the horse. And she's probably got a better future than the show did. I actually thought that was actually one of the better shows about horse racing before it got canceled early. So I've been trying to be going to Vegas the last couple of starts. I'm not going to try that anymore. So I've got number 4 going to Vegas over Magic Attitude, number 7 coming in from the East Coast, and then just wondering about the 8 Luck off what was a spectacular U.S. debut.
Tom likes the Invaders, the International Invaders. Tom, you like Luck, or are you going somewhere else?
Well, I picked Luck for second, but I went with Fast Jet Court as my top pick. Had some trouble in the last race. Finished 4th. It was running at the end. I like that. Prior to racing in the U.S., it's had 6 wins down in Brazil, various levels, including in facing the males. Its last race down there was very impressive. It was wrapped up at the end, winning by 7 lengths. Can't complain about that. I took a look at the dam. The dam has 2 starters, 2 winners, and interestingly enough, one is on the turf and the other one's on the dirt. And they both have won stakes races. So right in there. My only issue with this one is the distance just a little too far. But I'm going to say, we'll give it a shot. And I think you get a bit of a price here. I did go with Luck as my next choice. Love the race it first started. I really like its works since then. 59-3, a minute and 3, and 46-3, plus a couple of works on it at the Del Mar Turf. And I'm looking at that going, very interesting. Good speed, good. It looks like it's still in form and fits with this bunch without any problem. I took a look at the dam side. I wanted to see if it could get distance, and it has 5 stake. The dam has produced 5 stakes winners. One of them is a jumper, so that's a distance race for sure. And 14 folds to race, which is pretty impressive. And they're all winning at distance of 1 1/16. So, and the dam won at 1 1/4. So I don't think the distance is at all an issue with her. Fitness is not an issue, but level I think is. I don't know quite there because of the races in France. Handicap and allowance races, and 3 of those races were on the all-weather, and 2 wins and 1 start. That's great. And I scratched my head and I go, okay, is this really a dirt horse or is it a turf horse? Well, we're going to find out on Saturday. My final one is that Blanc Nuage Blanc. Winner out last time out in a listed race. Strong rally. She's faced some of the horses that are she's run against before, but step up, okay, no problem. The other thing that's really interesting with her is that her last 4 races she hasn't run with Lasix. So before she's running with Lasix and doing and now they took her off Lasix and she's running a lot better. And I thought that was a very interesting move. She's a Group 3 winner in France at Lyon. And again, she's another one of these ones that 4 races, she's won on the all-weather. So this definitely a step up. So we'll see what she does.
Now, Terry, Todd, is usually the one that agrees with the host the most. So who do you like, Terry?
Yeah, well, this time I don't agree with my top pick. I like number 1, Dog Tag. Wobbled at the start in the last race and lost a little ground, still ran second. She likes the track and the distance and has one of the best turf speeds among today's starters, actually tied, and has a good 5 furlong workout on the 22nd of September at Santa Anita, and it was 1 minute and 2, handling best out of 37. Then I like number 4, Going to Vegas, and that, I guess, is Todd's top pick. It's my second. Has won 2 races in a row at 1 1/8 and now stretches out to 1 1/4, which she's performed well at in the past. She has the highest last race speed rating and shares the best turf speed with Dog Tag. Number 8, I like 3rd, Luck. Won her first race easily after coming in from Europe. Flavia Pratt is playing musical chairs with Umberto Rosoli as they've changed mounts for this contest. Now, Pratt is winning at 27% this year, and Rosoli is winning at 20%. So I think that gives a little bit of edge to Luck. She's actually has several workouts that have been really good. And then my 4th pick is Nay Blanche, has won 2 of her last 3 races and has a jockey, Juan Hernandez, who in the last 7 days has a really good record, winning 5 out of 13 mounts, running second twice and third twice.
Fantastic. Sean, how about you? You've been the hot one. You've been turning the 10 into 1,000 these days. So what's the what's the sage got to say?
So I'm going to agree with Terry here. I'm going Dog Tag. This horse always tends to find trouble and ends up finishing second. It's done it 4 straight times. I think the jockey switched to Joe Bravo here. Also, the fact that the pace is going to be slow. I think Dog Tag can find a spot and not have too many horses in front like before. Then I went number 8, Luck. Won her U.S. debut. Now gets Flavia Pratt. I always like the horse better on the second time. So the fact that she's already won her U.S. debut, I really like her here. And then going to Vegas could be the lone speed if she wants to go that way, but she's actually performed better since taking the blinkers off and not breaking on the lead, and does well at the track and distance. And if she doesn't go for the lead, who knows who gets lead here, because I just see this as a very slow pace.
Yeah, for me, I like that first run from Luck. And then when you look at the all-weather performance, you look at the first time the horse caught a firm track, it looked phenomenal. I think she's going to be the one that has an opportunity to step forward the most. We don't really know her upside. Dog tag at the track at the distance is a head away from being undefeated, so I feel like that's the right distance for dog tag. Going to Vegas, of course, seems to be the one that everybody's talking about. So I expect that going to Vegas will take some money. And like Todd said, we'll try to beat it. And then finally, Nage Blanche, I think, is the horse that's probably going to be coming the strongest late. I just wonder if maybe 1.25 miles is not maybe long enough for this horse, looking at some of its past races. It seems like it has to go longer to take advantage of that super strong late kick. All right, so now we're going to move off to race number 10. That is just open it up real quick. That is the Awesome Again Stakes. And I know that Bob Baffert skipped out on Medina Spirit last weekend out in, what was that, in Saratoga to run here. So what do you think about
Parks?
Oh, Parks. Yes. Pennsylvania Derby. Yes.
Yeah.
I forget about Parks taking those kinds of races sometimes, but
I
forgive me, Pennsylvania, please. I'm a Pennsylvania son, but
I'm a lifetime loser at Parks. I try to forget about them often.
So what do you think about that move from Bob with Medina Spirit?
Look, everyone wants to parse. I mean, poor Medina Spirit. I mean, we essentially have back-to-back years where we're talking about maximum security is away from his connections, and his trainer is under FBI indictment. So what do you do about maximum security? And the best thing that was pointed out is, like, you can't blame the horse for the bad actions of the people around them. You just got to assess the horse. But this is handicapping in the 21st century. I mean, this is just where we are. Like I said, there are some miracle moves that trainers make, and sometimes you got to be skeptical or whatever. But when it comes to Medina Spirit, I just think even if you want to say he's going to run his best race, I don't think he's beaten Hot Rod Charlie. Whether or not it was post position, I think Baffert was looking for an excuse to be out. I don't think it was ultimately post position. Otherwise, he would have scratched Authentic from his post, which I think was 19 in the Derby, correct? So I don't buy into it. The ultimate reason why he didn't go, but I wouldn't have wanted to go either, because I don't think he had the goods to go to the Pennsylvania Derby. Why not? He's in barn 1 at Santa Anita. He's got the shortest walk to the paddock there. So why wouldn't you send Medina Spirit against the older horses? And remember something else he also said. We'll see how he performs in the Awesome Again and whether or not we'll go on to the Breeders' Cup Classic. This is not an automatic horse for the Breeders' Cup Classic. He basically gets to find out against older horses where Medina Spirit belongs, because we don't know at this point where the 3-year-olds belong. If they belong against the older horses, in a lot of cases, we haven't seen enough marquee showdowns to say, oh yes, the 3-year-old group matches up. I think personally they don't. To take a horse like Medina Spirit up against Knicks Go at any distance, give me a break. There's no chance. So I don't think the 3-year-olds belong. So in the end, my personal belief is, and I don't have any inside knowledge of it, my personal belief is he took an excuse that most people could see through, but ultimately he made the right decision. Medina Spirit absolutely would have been beat by both those horses last week, who were 1-2 in the Pennsylvania Derby. And now he gets to stay at home. And if he sends this horse out there and these older horses humiliate him, there's no reason to go on to the Breeders' Cup down the 5 South and get humiliated again. So ultimately, I think it was the right decision. It was just a kind of a lame excuse.
So is he going to get humiliated, or do you think he's got a shot?
He's going to get humiliated. I mean, and here's the thing. After the Derby, I just sat there and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think I know horse racing. And then I watched what happened in the Derby. I'm like, what am I doing? I mean, I torched so much money on that Derby day. And then the Derby was the coup de grace to how wrong I was. There was that whole group of people. Well, how do you not play Bob Baffert? I'm like, you don't understand. I don't just show up for the first Saturday in May. Like, people show up for the first Saturday in May and go, I'm going to play Bob Baffert. It's like, no, it's not that simple for the rest of us. So I walked away really confused. But even since that time, his comeback effort was good. But how good is Rock Your World? How good is that? The Santa Anita Derby looked brilliant when he did that. First time off the turf and first time on the dirt. But now he doesn't look so brilliant. So the comeback win, that was nice. And I'm happy for Medina Spirit. That's great. But I don't see him much better than that. And he's going to have to be much, much better in here. So my belief is the older horses are far superior to anyone else in the 3-year-old division this year. And that includes Essential Quality. And look, Essential Quality I've been wrong about for a while, but it's only because he's been a short price and he really hasn't faced any deep fields. But I think we'll obviously find out about him with the older horses. But my belief is the older horses are better, even going down to the bottom half of the older horses, 5 through 10, if you wanted to rank them that way. And the horse at the beginning of the year that I thought was going to dominate California was Idol. I've loved Idol since the first time I saw him at Churchill Downs, and it was on the Derby undercard. He's gorgeous, and he's got everything. But he's had an oft interrupted career. But I saw Richie Baltas not long before he started just coming back to the track after the layoff, after he'd won the big cap. And the fact that Richie Baltas is putting him on the path to get to the Breeders' Cup Classic off this layoff tells you everything you need to know. That question earlier about trainers that maybe aren't huge names that you'd have ultimate confidence in. Sign me up for Richie Baltas every day of the week. He can train with anybody in the country. He's already proven it. When Eric Guillot, who was not a very good trainer, to put it out there, and I think he'd admit it, you can look at the percentages, when he had his best meet at the fairgrounds, his assistant was Richie Baltas. So, you look at a lot of these trainers, it's like, look at the assistant. That's why a lot of times they're doing well. Richie Baltas, when he was on his own, trained Freedom Crest to win the Goodwood at 37-1 over Tisnow, who went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. This guy can flat out train, but yet he doesn't deal with a top barn all the time. He's got graded stakes horses, but he doesn't have graded stakes horse after graded stakes horse after graded stakes horse. So I'm putting my faith in a horse that I always thought was the best out here in California, in Idol, and I'm putting my faith in a trainer that obviously has the same confidence to put him on the fast track. I think this is a replay in my mind of the big cap. Express Train hasn't had the year that I thought, but I think Idol and Express Train, what they did in the big cap, if they can run those types of races in the Awesome Again, I think they could be 1-2 in this race like they were in the big cap. So I have a very strong opinion on Idol in here and a very strong opinion against Medina Spirit.
I agree. Terry, who do you have running 1-2?
I have number 5, Medina Spirit. He won his last race leading all the way, and he's never finished out of the money, winning 50% of the races. He's had several great works, including a sharp work on September 25th, 59.4 handling, 4th best out of 89. And then I like number 1, Tis a Magician.
Tis a Magician, yep.
Yeah. Ran second at a mile and a quarter and cuts back in distance, which can only help his chances. His best dirt speed is the fastest among today's starters, and he's had a really good workout too. He had a minute and 1 handling. He was the 6th best out of 89. And then I like number 3, Express Train. Had trouble in his last race and finished 6th. He'll need to stay out of trouble because he seems to always to get in trouble. But if he does and breaks well, he'll finish very well. And he has a really good workout also. And then I like number 8, Todd's horse, Idol. I won the last race closing from deep and then took a 7-month break. He has a really good workout, a 112 flat handling, best of 11 for his return to racing. I just don't know, maybe might need a race. So that's where I'm at.
How about you, Sean?
I like number 7, Tripoli. Has really found something with Jockey Tioga Pereira and also dirt. Is a half a length away from being 4 for 4 with Pereira and 3 for 3 on the dirt. Should also have dueling leaders in front of him. I feel there's a lot of speed. The only ones that really aren't speed are the 7 and the 8. So they're my top 2 picks here. Number 8, Idol, is my second. Concerned about that layoff, but with the workouts and everything, I mean, this horse is one of the most talented in the field, and the workouts look great. And then my third pick, I went Tis a Magician, like Santa Anita, and done well with Pratt aboard. Has speed, but doesn't need the lead. Just needs to find a good spot from the rail. And I will say the whole Medina Spirit thing, I mean, there's as much, if not more speed in this race than there was in Park. So that excuse really looks bad now.
Probably. How about you, Tom? Do you see a lot of speed winning this race, or are you going to go with the closer? You're always somewhat surprising with your picks.
Well, Sean and I are on the same wavelength because I really like Tripoli. You really can't complain about its 3 dirt races because it has triple-digit speed figures in all those races. So they take it off the turf, put it on the dirt, and all of a sudden it's a whole different horse. And let's face it, the Pacific Classic was a nice race that the horse ran. And I can't get past that. And if it can run even close to that race, I think it beats this bunch. Idol is my second choice. I agree with Sean on that. It's a lightly raced 4-year-old who's obviously had some issues. Never out of the money. I don't think they're going to put this horse out there unless it's got a chance. And and throw its work of 1 minute and 12 going 6 furlongs. It looks like it's in shape. Just a matter of whether it can get it the job done, so to speak. I threw Medina Spirit in there. Yeah, it's good enough to be on the lead. Is it good enough to beat this bunch? No.
I don't know if he's going to get the lead, to be honest with the Medina Spirit. I have him rated 4th because he doesn't really pass many. If you look at his past performance record, he doesn't pass a lot of horses. He doesn't really get passed either. So, no, they made a big deal out of that Mike Tirico over and over and over again during the Kentucky Derby. But I like Tripoli too. I think it'll be a replay of the last race between Tripoli and Tis a Magician. Tripoli is just a half a length away from winning 4 in a row. Just ran his best race. Any improvement could be enough. Tis Magician probably benefits from this race being a little bit shorter than the last one by a quarter mile. And I do like Idol. You mentioned that workout, Tom. I think you said 1:12. It was actually faster than his 6 furlong time in the race before that. So when you see a horse that works out faster than he actually raced, I would imagine that's a pretty good indication of a horse that's on its way up in terms of form. And then I'm going to give Medina Spirit a shot in here just because I'm pulling for the horse. Because like Todd said, it's not the horse's fault whatsoever at all. It's clearly the people around the horse's fault. And unfortunately, the horse, in, I guess, some respects, is collateral damage. The last race of the day, and you kind of alluded to this one already a little bit earlier, is another one of those 1.25 mile races down the hill. Todd, it is the John Henry Turf Championship. And it sounded like you had some thoughts about that one in the last 1.25 mile race.
Yeah, I was alluding to the fact that the form that you get at Del Mar doesn't always hold up when they come back to Santa Anita, and the same thing when they go from Santa Anita down to Del Mar. And so I think 2 horses that we saw in the Charlie Whittingham with Acclimate and Award winner, I think they're going to come back to form being at Santa Anita. Is that good enough for them to win this race? I think that's debatable, but I would advise everyone, look for those horses to run big races just by virtue of coming back to Santa Anita. But I absolutely love Masterpiece in here. Masterpiece ran in the last race on TVG Pacific Classic Day, the Del Mar Handicap. And it was a race where my colleague Christina Blacker, who had been on a heater that last couple of weeks at Del Mar, she picked Astronaut, who won at 22-1. How do I know Masterpiece ran a good race that day? Because I needed him, and he was second to Christina's Astronaut. But the larger point here with Masterpiece, he's a horse that I got to see at Keeneland. That was back in the spring of this year. He just barely got up as the favorite over a pretty good horse by the name of Admiralty Pier. I've always felt that Masterpiece is perfect for the 1.25 miles. It really comes down to a question, United is a horse that everybody respects and everybody loves, but he's not as consistent as he once was. You can make an excuse for his trip in the last race. So many of these horses are coming out of the Del Mar Handicap. But I think with the horse with the biggest upside on the Del Mar Handicap, it's Masterpiece, and a lot of that is trainer Michael McCarthy. He only had the horse for that start coming in from the East Coast from Chad Brown, and Michael McCarthy, another one of those trainers. Yes, he did end up winning the Preakness, but I think for the most part he still flies under the radar. But he came up under Pletcher, and he's just another one of those names that doesn't have all the big horses, but I have every confidence in his ability as a horseman. So I like Masterpiece quite a bit in this race. With certainly a nod to Acclimate and Award winner because of their accomplishments over the Santa Anita turf course.
I kind of agree with some of those picks as well. We'll get that in a minute. Sean, who do you like?
So I'm going to sound like Tom here with a long shot. I'm going number 12, Friars Road. This horse tried turf for the first time last time out, and he loved it, winning impressively.
So you're in the burning part now, the confetti part of your pick.
Well, I think he could get a nice setup here as well, and it's another Michael McCarthy horse. There's a bunch of speed, I think, from the outside as long as he cuts over, and he'll come flying at the end. And then I did use United for the second pick, most accomplished horse in this race, like Santa Anita in the distance. The last 6 times out, he's every other, and last time he finished 4th, so he's due to win again. And then I like number 7 Masterpiece as well. I think he's going to get a perfect setup here, and the horse is always coming at the end.
How about you, Terry? What do you like?
Yeah, well, I like United, but I had a hard time between United and Acclimate deciding who would be my top pick. I finally decided with United. As you said, Sean, he ran 4th in his last race as the favorite, but he lacked room in the upper stretch. And he has the best dirt speed among today's starters. He also has a bullet workout of 36.2 handling, best of 8. Then I like Acclimate, number 6. He'll break on top and try to lead all the way. He has one of the highest last race speed rating, and he is having a good year, finishing 85% of the time in the money, winning 14% of those. And then I like number 10, Red King. He lacked room when closing from deep in his last race, but still only beaten a length and 3/4. He has finished 60% of the time in the money during his career and won 20% of those races. And then number 3, Neptune Storm, has finished 77% of the time in the money in his career and won 32% of those races.
Indeed, Tom, I saw you smiling while Todd was. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Tom was smiling while Todd, but you were smiling when he was mentioning Masterpiece. So I think I already know who you're going to pick to win. But let's see if I'm right.
No, you don't.
Oh,
United, top choice. Lacked room in the last race, missed by 3/4 of length. Sean pointed out the pattern. Good, bad, good, bad. This is good. I think good this time. I really like that blowout work of 36-2 to prep for this race. I think that's really something that is very important. And it's also done very well at this distance. 6 starts, 3 wins, 1 second, 1 third. It's going to make a move in the middle of the race, and it should be right there at the end. I think this is the right level. I think grade 2 is the right level for this horse. I think grade 1 may be a little bit of a push. Now I'm going to step out a little bit.
Yeah, here we go.
Number 5, Real Soul, also a McCarthy horse.
Has he got heavy horse in this field or what?
Well, he does. I think he's got 3, if I remember.
Just don't put him in front of the Dallas Cowboys. That's all.
Yeah. Well, this horse has been running well. 1 win and 1 loss by a nose in a troubled race too. Switched jockeys. Flavian Pratt's off because he's riding United. And John Velasquez gets on board. Well, I don't think that's losing anything on that level.
He would win at 57% if he were out there.
And, he's been beating some of these horses and running against them in lesser races. Now they're in this race. Steps up, definitely. Graded company. But the breeding says distance, no problem. And actually may won a longer race than this. And I also like it works. Good maintenance works. Nothing fancy, just grinding it out. And I think it's a good grinder for this kind of race. Now I'm really going to step out a little.
So those last one wasn't stepping out. All right, let's see.
Number 11, Cupid's Claw, I think is definitely stepping out. It's traded hands more than a few times in claimers way back there.
There was a good Kim Kardashian joke in there, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's run on dirt, all weather, turf, and with various results. Best race without question is Tokyo City in September. Last start at Golden Gate made a move, but frankly didn't finish. So what did they do this time for this race? Well, they took the blinkers off. They had Mike Smith to ride. They supplemented this horse into the race, so they had to pay a little money to get in here. And I think you need to watch the odds on this one because there could be something up here.
Maybe. Could be something up. We'll find out if you went out on a limb there or not. Maybe the folks at the inside at the track will know something Tom knows. I agree with Todd, so I guess I'm the agreeable host today. I like Masterpiece. I feel like the horse should have he figured it out in his last race and should have the most punch late. I did notice that Acclimate has 3 seconds and 3 races at the distance, and I expect that he will be on the pace all the way around. I don't know that there's a real challenge to that for him. United, I expect to be the favorite to take in all the money, has done real well at the distance as well. And finally, I like award winner as well, ran well at, as Todd has mentioned, at Santa Anita, 2 wins, 2 seconds, but those 2 wins happen to be at 1.25 miles. So it seems to be the absolute right distance for for award winner. I forgot who I was talking about there for a minute. I guess it happens to all of us. The older you get, the harder it becomes, for sure. That wraps up the picks for today, Todd. If folks want to follow along with you besides TVG, obviously that's the most prominent place to follow you. How can they follow you on social media?
And basically, I have one social media platform. I'm just on Twitter at Todd TVG is my handle, and it's only because management basically dragged me there kicking and screaming. I don't do a lot on social media. What I do really appreciate through having been on Twitter is to make connections with people like yourself and Sean and Tom and Terry. It used to be you had your friends at the racetrack, and then that's what I've always loved is the communal aspect of being a horse player. You can go to any racetrack and immediately find a friend, even though you've never met them before. And so what social media has done, it's allowed us to have forums like this. And what you're doing with Horse Racing Radar is one of the best forums that we have. I know a lot of people try to do broadcasts like this, but you guys do it the right way. And it's been an honor to be here. But yeah, if people want to follow me, I'll be starting on Saturday. Cause like I said, I'm going to see Pearl Jam tomorrow. But on Saturday, I'll have my picks out, my top 3 picks for each race. And obviously it's going to mirror what we talked about here in races 9 through 11. The other thing I would add is that sometimes these big days turn up really light, small fields with, a 4 to 5 favorite versus an 8 to 5 second choice. What they have at Santa Anita on Saturday is outstanding. I mean, you looked at it with these 3 races that are competitive races. And don't forget about that new wager that's out there. 3 races from New York, 3 races from Santa Anita, and it's 2 days of pick 6, combining some of their big races in New York with the big races in California. I'm looking to see how that turns out. But I'm already excited about the weekend, having a chance to talk with you guys, and I'm so happy we got to make this connection.
So I think, after tonight, the Pearl Jam tomorrow is nothing short of a disappointment for sure.
Match up to this?
No, nothing can. Sean, if people want to match up to something as awesome as this, how do they do it?
Facebook and Twitter, Horse Racing Radar, handle at Racing Radar. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes, and if you like what you saw tonight, we appreciate the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. All that technology stuff pushes us higher up on Google, higher up on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all of that good stuff. Todd, it was our pleasure tonight. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the concert tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Yep, continued success. Thank you so much, guys. Love Horse Racing Radar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always, folks,
Thanks, Todd.
good luck at the races. And Tom and I will see you tomorrow morning to talk a little bit about some French racing. Till then, good luck at the track.
Thank you.